Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Zuffa LLC UFC conference call. Today's conference is being recorded. For opening remarks and introductions, I would now like to turn the conference over to Dave Scholler. Please go ahead.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the UFC 136 media conference call. Today, we're very excited to be joined on the call by our world champions Frankie Edgar and Jose Aldo, as well as challengers Kenny, Florian, and Gray Maynard. Before we get started in the call, I do want to explain how this format is going to work today. For the first half of the call, we will have our championship bouts, and then we will break and pause for a brief moment, and then we will add in middleweight contenders Chael, Sonnen, and Stann. So I do encourage you all questions here in the first half of this call for the main four title fights, and then after that we'll go to Brian and Chael. They are not on the line now, so again, please keep your questions for Frankie, Gray, Jose, and Kenny. Catherine, at this time, let's go ahead and open up for questions.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, if you would like to ask a question, please press star 1 on your touch-tone telephone. If you're using a speakerphone today, please pick up the handset before pressing star 1 and make sure your mute function is turned off to allow your signal to reach our equipment. Once again, that is star 1, and we'll pause for just a moment. And we will take our first question from Bo Dury with ESPN.com.
Yes, thanks. I had a question for Kenny. As a veteran of the Ultimate Fighter, and now someone fighting in one of the lower weight classes, what do you see from this season of the Ultimate Fighter with the featherweights and bantamweights on it?
Yeah, I was only able to see the first episode, and looks like they're a talented group of guys. You know, they definitely went hard. There were some exciting fights, and you know, they look good for sure.
As you've had to cut down through the weight classes, do you feel like you've had to get faster? Do you feel like the fights just go quicker at that weight?
Well, you know, obviously there's a big difference between middleweight and featherweight for sure, but yeah, no, I mean, there's a little bit of a transition, you know, just trying to find fast training partners on a consistent basis especially for a guy like Aldo, you know. But other than that, it's not really a major difference for me. You know, I was never really a true middleweight. You know, I was a chubby 178 pounder. So, yeah.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. And we'll go on to Stephen Fettel with Asbury Park Press. And Steve Fettel, your line.
Hi, my question is for Gray and for Frankie. Obviously, with the nature of this fight being a rematch and also being delayed, you guys have been training for each other and thinking about each other for probably well over a year at this point. Can you talk about how that's kind of a unique circumstance for you guys?
Go ahead, Greg. I couldn't hear the question.
Hey, Steve, would you go ahead and repeat that question for Gray, please?
Sure. I was just saying that since you guys have been set up with a rematch and then this fight was delayed, you guys have been training and thinking about fighting one another for about a year now for you guys.
Yeah, it is, but the draw, you know, that hurt a little bit. So, you know, I'm pumped to have it again. And, you know, I can't we'll wait for the 8th.
Yeah, for myself, you know, yeah, it is a unique position to be training for, you know, a guy for this long, and plus the fact that we met each other, you know, 2 other times before. But, you know, I fought BJ back-to-back. You know, I had 2 back-to-back training camps with him. So, you know, I mean, training for 2 guys in the past 2 years, I guess I'm kind of used to it.
Great, thanks a lot.
Got it.
Thank you. And we'll continue on to Stephen Morocco with MMA Junkie.
Hi, can everybody hear me okay?
Loud and clear, Steve.
Okay, great. Good news. My question is for Jose Aldo. There's a video that's circulating around the internet today about your weight cut for UFC 129, and I'm wondering how you feel about that video. You know, you're a 25-year-old guy, and obviously you might still be growing. Do you think there's a time, or do you see a time where maybe you might not be able to fight, or it's not possible?
Steven, this is Dave. Your line is cutting up again. Steven, I'm sorry, you're going to have to redial in. Let's go next to Bob Emanuel from Scripps Howard.
Frank, you mentioned about training to fight guys back-to-back. What kind of challenge does that provide going into that second training camp on a back-to-back fight?
Beleza, my guys. Biggest challenge, just coming up with another game plan, another series of attacks and whatnot, and also have its benefits too, because you just had to get in with the guy, so it's fresh on your mind, and you have a lot of situations to base your training camp off of. But it's just the fact that you got to come up with new stuff.
All right. Now, I think 10 of your 15 fights have gone to a decision. Is that, especially after the draw last time, does that give you even more motivation to try and get the fight finished, or do you take maybe a chance that maybe you wouldn't have before trying to go for a finish?
I mean, that's always, I think, everyone's goal in the sport is to try to get for a finish. It's easier said than done for others, but yeah, I mean, that's always my goal.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, that is *1 for any questions. And we'll continue on to Matthew Ryder with Bleacher Report.
Hi, guys. Can you hear me okay there?
Yes, sir. You're coming through loud and clear. Please go ahead.
Okay. It's a question for Jose Aldo, actually. I'm just wondering about the performance at UFC 129. It was obviously an exciting fight of the night. What was it like to collect such a big fight of the night bonus there, $129,000, especially after making the jump from WEC and sort of seeing, the advancement in salaries so quickly like that?
Ô, Júnior, todo mundo viu a tua luta no último Ultimate, foi impressionante. Como é que foi para você aquela noite lutando no Ultimate pela primeira vez, defendendo o cinturão e ainda ganhou aquele bônus de 129 mil pela luta da noite?
Pois é, foi ótimo, né? A noite para mim foi maravilhosa, acho que deu tudo certo, foi do jeito que nós treinamos, do jeito que a gente planejou, saiu. E foi um dia muito feliz na minha vida, né, cara? Eu acho que estar dentro do Ultimate e ser o campeão ali defendendo, para mim, é uma coisa descomunal, né? Então é ótimo, eu me sinto muito bem ali dentro.
Yeah, he said that night was wonderful, couldn't have been much better. He was in there fighting the UFC for the first time, defending his belt. His game plan came along great in the fight. And, he says just to be in the UFC fighting for the belt and defending his belt is just wonderful.
All right, great. One other quick question there. There was a lot of talk coming into this fight, about the idea that Kenny was dropping down to 145, to get away from the lightweight division and get a shot at gold at featherweight. Does Jose take that at all? Take any sort of an affront to that Kenny's going to come into his division, looking for gold? Obviously, Kenny's a talented guy and he's fought for titles before. What's Jose's mindset looking at Kenny coming in, if that is the case, that he's kind of coming to 145 specifically to take his belt?
O Júnior, ele está perguntando como é que você se sente sabendo que o Kenny Florian, claro que está descendo de peso, porque ele não conseguiu o cinturão da categoria de cima, ele quer ter uma chance da tua categoria. Como é que você se sente com isso? É ofensivo, alguma coisa, ou é normal?
Para mim é normal, eu não vejo problema nenhum, acho que isso, ele achou que na categoria de baixo ele pode ser melhor do que na de cima, né? Isso faz parte, acho que não só ele, mas vários outros atletas também, uns descem, outros sobem de categoria. Para mim, eu vejo isso normal. O importante é estar bem treinado, chegar lá e fazer o meu sempre. É isso que eu penso. Eu penso em mim e os outros eu penso por eles.
He says he feels it's a completely natural transition for Kenny. A lot of guys move up and down in weight classes throughout their career, and then Kenny felt that this was the right time for him to move to 145, and he respects him. He's really just focused on his own training. His opponents doesn't really matter as long as they're in there well prepared.
All right, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And we'll hear now from Mark Daniels with the Boston Herald.
Hey, thank you. Hey, Kenny, hope you're doing well, man. What's your mindset like going into this title shot, and is it different from the last time you fought for a title against BJ Penn?
Hey, Mark. Yeah, it is different. It's definitely different. I think every fight is always going to be different. You're always going to have, a different mindset based on your training camp, based on your opponent, and I've always learned from each previous camp, win or lose. And I've made a lot of mistakes, and I'm thankful for those mistakes. And my goal is to try to make each training camp better and better every time, and to be able to increase my workload capacity and improve my skills. And I think I've done that for every training camp, and I feel good, man. I've trained my ass off for this fight, and I'm looking forward to going out there and competing hard on the 8th.
Awesome. And is Aldo comparable to anyone you've fought before?
No, he's pretty unique. He's pretty unique in that very fast, explosive guy, similar to BJ, but obviously more of a kicker. His dangerous weapons are his legs. Excellent footwork, very, very fast, and I think dangerous on the ground. We're about the same with the wrestling, all those things. So it definitely is a unique opponent, and I had to prepare differently for him for sure.
Awesome, man. Thank you.
Thank you, and we'll continue on to Chuck Yarbrough with Cleveland Plain Dealer.
Hi. Hey, Gray. How you doing, man?
Hey, Chuck.
My question is, how's it going? Now, these questions are going to be for Gray and for Frankie. Gray, you've come really close to like an NCAA championship, to the Olympics, and then you had this fight right in your hands. You even had the fight before this in your hands, and it seemed like it was snatched away from you either by injury. Do you feel a little bit snake bit? And with all of those things coming close to all of those goals, what would a victory mean to you?
Yeah, I come close to a lot of goals. I also have a lot of goals that I did accomplish, and it always feels really good at the time, but then the next day it's on to the next one, seems like. So there's always going to be more.
Okay.
And that's what keeps going.
And the way you guys train, you set a training schedule so that you peak right at fight time, and now with the injuries just got put back. So was it easier to get back into the whole training mode, and how did you use the extra time, basically, that you got because of the injuries? And that's for both fighters, please.
It was easy to get back. Yeah, I love to train. I only took off about 3-4 weeks, and because of a scope on my elbow, but the whole time I planned out the camp I would have, and it was all good.
Okay. And the same question for Frankie?
Yeah, I had to take some time off rehab and everything, take care of my back, but I pretty much had a full training camp before I had gotten hurt. So it's almost like I didn't really miss a beat. Took the time off I needed to take off, and then got right back to it.
Did you use the time for more film study or for more working on a different part of your fight game?
Yeah, when you're not on the match and you're not, not really grinding, you try to, improve in any way you can possible. And I guess, mentally and, technically maybe watching videos and stuff with my team, yeah.
Okay. All right, thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And we'll continue on to Kevin Richardson with the Baltimore Sun.
This question is for, actually 2 questions for Kenny and 1 for Jose. And the questions for you, Kenny, is with you going down in weight, do you think you're going to be the stronger fighter? And the second question is, what have you seen in Aldo's fight game that you think you can exploit?
Do I think I'm going to be the stronger guy I'm fighting? I don't know. It's one of those things that's hard to tell unless you get in there with the guy and you see who's stronger. All I know is I've done my best to improve my strength, and I'm feeling pretty confident about that. But you never know until you get in there. As far as what I think I could exploit, I think that generally, I don't think he's faced a guy who's as well-rounded and as experienced as I am, and that's what I'm going to bring in there. I'm going to bring in well-rounded skills, experience, and just going to see where the mistake lies, and that's it.
And for Aldo, my question is, watching the various tapes on Kenny, have you had to fight anyone with Kenny's reach, and what do you think you can exploit with Kenny?
O Júnior está perguntando se você já lutou com alguém que tenha o alcance, a envergadura do Kenny, e o que você está esperando?
Com certeza já lutei, né, cara? Eu lutei tanto a maior do que ele, canhoto, do mesmo jeito que ele, e eu tô esperando o melhor, né? Eu sempre treino pra isso. Eu acho que quando eu entro ali dentro, eu sempre vou esperar o melhor. Eu vou fazer meu estilo de jogo e vamos ver no que vai dar.
Yeah, he says he's definitely fought taller guys before, even guys with a longer reach than Kenny. But, he can only expect to be able to impose his game and then have a good fight.
Good luck to you, both of you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As a reminder, ladies and gentlemen, that's *1, and we'll go on to Steven Morocco with MMAJunkie.com.
Sorry about before, guys. Question is for Jose. I wanted to ask him about this video that's circulating around today about his weight cut for UFC 129. Obviously, it seems like he was suffering a lot, and he's 25 years old, and he might have some more growing to do. Does he see like a point where he might not be able to cut that weight anymore, and he might have to go up to lightweight because he physically can't make that weight anymore?
Ele falou que está todo mundo vendo o vídeo hoje que a Paulinha colocou de você perdendo peso na última luta. E ele disse, você sendo jovem é fácil perder esse peso, mas você acha que vai chegar um ponto que você não vai poder fazer esse corte tão bem, que você vai ter que subir de peso?
Também acho. Eu acho que a minha vida inteira, sempre, desde quando eu comecei na luta, no jiu-jitsu, foi perdendo peso, cara. Eu sempre cortei peso e hoje em dia eu sinto a facilidade por isso que eu sou jovem. Mas futuramente eu não sei, né, cara? O corpo vai sofrendo bastante com essa perca e ganho de peso que nós atletas temos e futuramente eu não sei, né, cara? Isso é difícil de falar porque o futuro eu não sei, mas vamos ver. Vamos ver. Enquanto eu estiver podendo perder tranquilamente, eu sempre vou continuar. Mas um dia que eu se sentir prejudicado, com certeza a gente vai mudar de categoria, entendeu? Que vai ser bem melhor. E querendo ou não, hoje em dia eu tô novo, mas amanhã, quando eu estiver velho, vai ser prejudicial na minha saúde isso.
Yeah, he says that since he started training any martial arts back from his jiu-jitsu days, he's always been cutting a lot of weight. He feels comfortable doing it, and definitely being young and 25 years old helps it a lot. But he does feel that there might come a point when all that weight cutting takes a toll on the body, and he hopes that when he reaches that point, he's mature enough to be able to, figure out what he has to do. He's got to have to move up in weight, but he feels that he's comfortable doing it right now. It doesn't bother him, and he feels healthy.
Did he refine the process at all after the cut at 129, or were there other factors that were involved that sort of made it difficult?
E o que aconteceu na perda de peso da última luta que pareceu ser tão difícil?
Acho que não foi tão difícil, a gente sempre passa por daquele jeito que a gente gravou, né? Você está no vídeo ali, a perda de peso sempre foi essa, mas a gente fez um plano de eu ganhar bastante massa, ficar bastante pesado, para quando a luta desenvolvesse no chão, eu ter um jogo maior por cima, né? Ficar mais pesado. E então acho que foi isso, né? Acho que eu cheguei acima do jeito que a gente fez a estratégia e nisso eu posso ter alguma dificuldade, mas eu sempre faço aquilo, sempre do mesmo jeito.
He said his wake up processing is about the same every time. That's usually what he goes through before the fight. But before that fight, they were working a lot on gaining muscle mass, and that's why he might have been a little heavier, and it might have taken a little bit longer to get the weight off.
Okay, thanks, guys.
You're welcome.
Thank you. We'll take our next question from Kiban Antonio with Super Sport Media.
Thank you very much. Good luck, boa sorte para todo mundo, and obrigado.
to make things easier, I'll ask the question in English rather than in Portuguese, and Kenny and Jose will be able to answer whatever is more comfortable for them. I wanted to ask Jose, with the last fight, MMA fight and UFC fight in Rio, does he see a change in the way the Brazilian public is perceiving the fighters in terms of as a profession and in the sport hierarchy coming after soccer, all the sports? Does he see a change in the Brazilian attitude towards the sport, towards os lutadores? And Kenny, also you have Peruvian family. Do you get a sense that there is a reverberation in the Latin countries that you didn't see before as the sport grows?
Júnior, ele perguntou se depois do UFC Rio você percebeu a recepção pelos lutadores de MMA mudou no Brasil, por exemplo, como as pessoas veem e a corrida entre o MMA e o futebol no Brasil.
Mudou bastante, né? Acho que depois dessa UFC aqui no Rio, a popularidade aumentou bastante. Eu acho que eu já esperava isso, né? Eu sempre achei que no dia que o time chegasse aqui ia ser divisor de águas. E graças a Deus, isso para nós, atletas brasileiros, é ótimo. Reconhecimento, tudo isso que está acontecendo, né? E o futebol acho que é difícil. Acho que o futebol no Brasil sempre vai ter em primeiro lugar. Isso já está na cultura do povo brasileiro. Então não tem como o MMA passar mais assim, ficar ali perto. Com certeza sempre vai estar, mas é muito difícil passar aqui no Brasil.
Não estou falando de desbancar o futebol, só de trás do futebol, se o MMA subiu mais, se você se sente que agora está mais... A gente está seguindo mais, né?
Ah, com certeza. Nós estamos ao mesmo tempo ali junto no futebol. Isso que eu estou te falando. Depois desse ultimate aqui, não só para mim, mas todos os atletas brasileiros, onde nós vamos, somos bem recebidos, somos reconhecidos. Então é como se fosse o jogador de futebol. Com certeza. Depois dessa chegada aqui no Brasil, ficou assim.
He pretty much said that a lot has changed since UFC Rio, that there's a lot more respect for the fighters, and he always felt that would happen after the UFC went to Brazil. And you know, soccer is always going to be number one in Brazil. It's a stitch in their culture, but MMA is right up there as number two, and it's grown a lot, especially after the UFC in Brazil.
I don't know if Kenny is on. Did you see anything of the sort for an international audience that mirrors back on you what you've picked up?
Yeah, for sure. You know, having been in Brazil, you know, and having been in Peru and having been to Mexico many times, I'm just always very, very impressed with how the communities there and the people there have been responding to the sport. They love it. And I think that goes with any country. You know, any country that sees this sport will fall in love with it. It's a dynamic and exciting sport. You know, it's one of those fights that, you know, you never know what's going to happen in it. It keeps people on the edge of their seats. And it's a matter of just really educating the public wherever you go. But certainly the Latin community, you know, we respect fighters. We love the fight game. We've been around the combat sport game for a long time. And you know, mixed martial arts really provides a lot of excitement and a ton of respect amongst them, and we just need to getting out there and educating them on how we train, how hard we train, who we are, all those things.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll take our next question from Matthew Joel with Bleacher Report.
Hi, yes. My question is for Frankie Edgar. After facing BJ Penn twice and still without a win against Gray, do you still feel like you are getting the respect that you deserve as the champion? And are you coming into this fight with a little bit of a chip on your shoulder?
You know, the respect's coming, man. You know, it's gonna keep growing the more I the better I do and the longer I keep this belt. And yeah, I try to come into every fight with a chip on my shoulder. You know, not for any reason, just because I'm eager to win, and having that chip on your shoulder helps you do so.
And just to follow up on that, has there been any specific thing you've been doing in your training camp that's helped you prepare for this third bout, either striking wise or grappling wise? Because I know you train at Renzo Gracie.
Yeah, just improving my all-around skills. My biggest thing in between every fight is try to become a better fighter than I was my last time out, and I believe I accomplished that. So as long as I can put it together, things will go my way.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, and that's all the time we have for questions at this point. I'll turn things back over to Dave Scholler.
All right, thanks, Catherine, and thanks to Frankie, Gray, Jose, Derek Lee, who translated for us today, and Kenny Florian. At this time, we are going to let the 4 title participants go, put you all on a brief hold, and we will return momentarily with Chael Sonnen and Brian Stann. Again, hang on the line for the members of the media, and to our 4 fighters and our translator who joined today, thank you very much for being on the call.
And Dave Scholler, you're live again. Please continue.
All right, guys. We want to thank everybody for hanging in there with us. Right now, we are joined on the call by middleweight contenders Chael Sonnen and Brian Stann, who will battle at UFC 136 next Saturday. At this time, we're going to go ahead and open it up for questions for Chael and Brian.
And as a reminder, ladies and gentlemen, that's *1 for any questions or comments. And again, we'll pause for just a moment. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, that's *1. Okay. And we'll hear first from Steve Eubanks with FoxSports.com.
Guys, how are we? This is for Brian. Brian, since we last spoke, you went to Houston and trained. I was going to ask you how your training has gone, and I was curious if since your last fight in Las Vegas, which generated a lot of press being held on Memorial Day, if you've seen an increase in fan knowledge and fan participation because of the added amount of coverage that came about because of the last fight.
Steve, great to hear from you, buddy. And training has gone very well. I'm down here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I've been down here for about the past 10 weeks, and I'm feeling great and ready to compete. And I think there has certainly been a greater amount of fan response and media response for this fight. I'm not sure if it's solely due to my last fight being on Memorial Day. I think it really, a lot of it has to do with the matchup. I think that, when you fight the number 2 fighter in the world and the person who is widely viewed as a number 1 contender to the middleweight title, I think it generates a lot of media. And so I think that's really been the fact that this fight's been dubbed a number 1 contenders bout has really been the reason for a lot of the attention.
Great, thanks.
And once again, ladies and gentlemen, *1. And we'll take a question from Stephen Morocco with MMAJunkie.com.
Hey, Brian. I'm wondering if there's any part of you that's maybe a little bit disappointed that Chael hasn't really said anything crazy about you in the build-up to the fight.
Hey, Steve, how you doing? No, I told everybody from the start that I didn't think it was going to happen. And, I've said this a couple times where I believe that Chael is very genuine when he says that if he has a problem with somebody, he will speak it. If he doesn't have a problem with somebody, he won't. When you saw his fights against Nate Marquardt, Dan Miller, Yushin Okami, he didn't have anything to say about those guys. He spoke about the fight. So it wasn't surprising to me at all that didn't happen. And I also wouldn't have taken it personally anyways if there was anything used to generate some hype around this fight. But I really think that our skill sets and the way that we fight has generated, all the hype it needs.
When he says he's the middleweight champion of the world, how do you take that?
I take it as a fighter who is mentally preparing himself to win a world title. And, I walk around and even if I feel terrible before practice and people ask me how I feel, I tell them I feel great. How do you feel about the fight? I feel great. I always say things in a positive manner because over time, that's how you feel. If you constantly think and talk like a champion, you feel like a champion, you think you're a champion, and then you go out and perform like a champion. So it doesn't surprise me at all. I use similar techniques that prepare me for both, any competition and my life in the business world as well.
Okay, thanks.
And we'll take our next question from Dave Diebert with Post Media News.
Hi, thanks for the call, you guys. Chael, how are you feeling after, it'll be 13, 14 months since you were last in front of the crowd? How's the body responded with the time off, and looking forward to, or how much are you looking forward to getting back in there?
Thanks for the question. Pretty good. I felt good the whole time. I get sick before every fight. I probably speak for Brian too. I think it's like just a common thing when you start to wear down. I've also got the weight cut to look at, so when you start messing with your calorie intake and your nutrients, I think your body gets a little more open to get run down. I'm at that point now, but again, that's kind of a familiar feeling. So I'm a little run down, but I'm going to take 72 hours off and just do nothing. After this call, I'm going to turn my phone off and kind of be bored, be a prisoner. I've rented some movies. I've got a couple magazines. I'm just going to stay in the house and try to recover.
What movies do you have?
I got something called The Road to Perdition, which is a Tom Hanks. It's got mixed reviews. I'm going to check it out though, and I've actually got one called The Bounty Hunter.
Jennifer Aniston.
Movie. Yeah, that one I saved on DVR, saved for a while. And there's a new program called Revenge, which is just a TV show on, but I saved that on DVR too. So I got a couple things to watch.
Gotcha. All right. How in terms of getting back in front of the crowd, and you've obviously stayed in the public eye, but you haven't been out there on fight night. How much are you looking forward to that that experience and everything that goes along with it?
Well, it's all part of it. I don't know that I ever look forward to it. I hear some guys say they're excited, and I always get jealous of those guys. I've never been excited to have to go fight another man, and I'm not excited now. I've always, like I said, I've been envious of guys that are excited for the battle and the competition. I'm happy. I'm happy to be part of it. I'm happy. As you said, I got put in timeout for a while. I'm glad that that's all over and behind me. But I have more of a matter-of-fact approach a little bit, and I'm not. Like I said, I'm not excited for the match.
So, I just want to differentiate then. You say you're happy to be back, but you're not excited. What are you, what makes you happy about being there, while at the same time not being excited?
Well, it's always hard to explain the emotion. I get asked that a lot, especially by kids or by younger fighters. That are looking to do it. Hey, God, that looks exciting. Sometimes they'll even use the word fun. And there's something there. There's an emotion there that's strong. It's not fear. It's not I don't know what it is. Maybe it is a little of that. It's a whole bunch of emotions that get combined into one. But excitement isn't one of them. The happy part is, look, hey, this is what I want to do, and I got held out of it for a while. So, I've always been grateful for these opportunities, but I think I'm a little more grateful now. I think I'm a little more appreciative. Appreciative would be a much stronger feeling that I'm having than any type of excitement.
Okay, perfect. Thanks very much.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you. As a reminder, ladies and gentlemen, *1 for questions. And we'll now take a question from Matthew Roth with BloodyElbow.com.
This question is for Brian Stann. Brian, training for this fight, it's one of the biggest fights of your career. How have you found time to balance the fighting, the training, and also, running the Higher Heroes Foundation?
Oh, great question. This is actually the first training camp I've had where I let go of my real estate job. Up until this fight, I was actually the vice president of all corporate real estate for a company called Med Assets, on top of being president of Higher Heroes USA. And after my last fight, I just went to him and simply said I couldn't do both jobs. One, that the charity had grown so large that it required my full attention, and I couldn't manage our lease portfolio of 26 locations nationwide and growing as they continue to do acquisitions. And at the same time, a very great friend, one of my best friends in the world, came to work with me at Hire Heroes USA and be my executive director. His name's Nathan Smith, and he's a captain of the Marine Corps, VMI grad, and he's just one of the most impressive human beings I've ever met. So for this training camp, he's really been running the day-to-day and allowing me to take full advantage of this opportunity to train all day, watch tape, and do the things I need to do, and actually even do things that I never did before, get injuries worked on and focus on recovery and things like that. I've always been a bit stubborn where, take a hot shower, it'll heal everything. So, time management for this fight has gone a lot better. And, the media has always been my opportunity to really do one of the main parts of my job for Hire Heroes, which is really publicize and get the word out about the organization and all the great things they're doing for veterans. So it's been much better this go-around than the last two fights.
Awesome. Good. That's good to hear. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and we will continue on to Reed Forgrave with Fox Sports.
Yeah, hey, this question is for Chael Sonnen. I'm curious, you've had some issues that have been pretty well documented over the past year and a half, and I'm curious how this has changed you as a fighter and as a person.
Well, I'd like to think that it hasn't. I've had to, as you stated, I've had some stuff that's documented. Listen, I've had plenty of things all through my life, even after the documented things. They just don't get documented. Sometimes you can keep it private, but I look for battles. I'm in the public eye, and I'm in the public sector. One as a statesman and a guy that's involved in politics, and two as an athlete. So having battles and some that don't go your way, some where you come out a little dusted up, and some you're the big hero that everybody's thanking. And that's just the life I've chosen. I'm not going to get away from it. This was the first time that I had to teach lessons. Some of these weren't lessons that I wanted to teach. These were lessons I would have rather learned from somebody else. But it's also not going to be the last time. I'm moving forward. I'm doing the same stuff. I'm helping and contribute in my community. And when you do that, oftentimes you look for battles. If you upset the wrong people who have power above you, every now and then they'll flex that power, and that's just human nature. So, I knew what I was getting into when I ran for office. I knew what I was getting into when I take on government. So that goes with the territory. As far as with a fighter, look, I don't like to be away from competition. And there's a tremendous difference in training. I say I haven't trained until the last 10 weeks. The reality is I worked out every day, but there's a big difference. And you'll hear a lot of athletes, every time they show up to a gym and break a sweat, they say, well, I was training today. And you're not. There's three things you can do. You can practice, you can work out, and then you can train. And training is exponentially more difficult. You eat, sleep, and breathe the event. And if you don't have that event out there, if you don't have that deadline, in our case, October 8th, you just can't manufacture that. You can't manufacture it mentally. Physically, you go in, you try to duplicate it, but it just doesn't happen. And I felt that. I felt that in the last 10 weeks, that, though I'm showing up to practice for the same length of time, I'm showing up with the same people and the same coaches, it's different. And I've got to learn to deal with that. It's not, it's not an ideal spot, but guys get stuck here all the time. Guys get hurt. My opponents, I can remember times at WEC, he had to get done with his match and get home. He had a plane to catch, and he had to go back and serve. So, you have to learn to deal with those things. Some people have been out due to injury, due to illness, due to service to their country, whatever it may be, and you miss time. I miss time for different reasons, but I'm in the same shoes. So it's like anything in life, you've got to deal with it, make the best of it, and move forward.
Cool. Thanks. I appreciate it.
Appreciate you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Once again, that is *1 for any additional questions or comments. And we will go to Kevin Richardson with the Baltimore Sun.
Hi, this question is for Chael Sonnen. Chael, I know you mentioned that we're that excited about fighting Brian, and I know he's a fellow American. Now, if this was a Brazilian, would that be a different change of heart?
Well, if it was a different opponent in general, I don't specifically care about his nationality or ethnicity or anything like that. A lot of that's just for a little bit of fun to have with the media and with some of the guys in the back. But, look, I'll speak for everybody. Nobody wants to fight Brian. But somebody's got to. Our paths have to cross. We're just in the same weight class. It's not that big of a pool. And he keeps whipping everybody. If he quit beating everybody, then I wouldn't have to fight him. But he decided to go out and become one of the top guys. So, I've done my part and put my time in, and I'm up there too. So, our paths have to cross. In fact, I think Brian put it better than anybody. At the end of the day, with everything going on in the world, the fact that we got to compete for up to 15 minutes just isn't that big of a deal.
Got it. And one other quick question is, just wanted to get your opinion on, do you really believe that Anderson Silva is in the best 205 in the world?
Do I believe? I wouldn't think so. If he could move up to 205, I don't think so. I think he has some problems with some guys, but
I am sorry. I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to say 205. I mean 185.
185. It's getting harder and harder to deny that he should be shown that appreciation. He ducked Okami for years, but he did finally get in there, and he made it look easy. So I think you've got to look at that. If you're asking if I would ever concede that Anderson's better than me, no. I would simply I would refer you to the tape. I think that he and I's skills are vastly different. I think that I could come down a lot and still be in ahead of him. I also think he ducks and dodges opponents constantly. And but listen, his wins and losses speak for themselves. And the fact of the matter, whether I like to admit it or not, is he's done a better job than anybody. He's done a better job than me, and he is the champion. So it doesn't mean I'm going to quit poking my finger in his chest. But at some point, I think fairness needs to kick in too, and I think you need to look at what he's done and tip your hat to him a little bit.
Chael, thanks for your honesty, and good luck, man.
I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. And we will take another question from Dave Diebert with Post Media News.
Hi, thanks again, guys. One for you, Brian. Chael actually kind of segued into it for me. He said, you just keep whipping everybody, just moving up the ladder and just keep whipping everybody. When has there been a particular fight or one of those eureka moments when that you can put your finger on as the time when you really made a jump to another level?
I think it was spring of 2010 where, I had just gotten off fighting 3 times in 5.5 months. The UFC kept me real busy. I went from Steve Cantwell to Rodney Wallace.
To Phil Davis.
Yeah, to Phil Davis. And, I had a baby during that time, literally a week and a half before I fought Rodney Wallace. And so, I finally got a break. And I was able to really devote myself to training specific skill sets, especially, jiu-jitsu and wrestling and rounding out my game. And so I think really that spring into the summer of 2010 was where I was really afforded the opportunity to round out my skill sets. And then from that point on, training with some of the guys I train, this last year has been, it's been great for me as far as growth.
That's evident then, I guess your last 3 in that time, you've had a submission finish and 2 knockouts. Is that I guess, safe to say, indicative of that jump that you think you made in that time?
It is. And you know, what happens in fighting is, you know, early in my career I had a very, very limited skill set, but I was very comfortable with that skill set so I could fight 100 miles an hour. When you then go somewhere where you're introduced to thousands of new skills, you become okay at all 1,000 of them, and you're trying to do way too much in the cage, and you fight now at 70 miles an hour. It took me some time, but when I began to get comfortable with all these new skills, now I could fight 100 miles an hour again. That's the best way I could describe it.
Okay. I know exactly what you're saying, Brian. I'm going through that too. I've learned more darn moves. I feel great, and when I go to spar, it's almost like I lock up going, what am I supposed to do? They just give me too much info. Now I'm frozen. Isn't that weird?
Okay, that's an interesting perspective. Thanks, both of you guys.
No problem.
Thank you. And we will now hear from Scott Walsh with the Scranton Times-Tribune.
Yes, hi. This question is for Brian. Brian, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Scott. How are you?
Good to talk to you again. A few minutes ago, you know, Chael just said that you know, there's nobody wants to fight you yet. You know, the paths have to cross. How does that kind of make you feel when you hear an opponent, you know, maybe kind of talking that way, you know, giving you that respect and everything like that, and nobody out there wants to fight you?
Well, you know, coming from Chael, whose career dates back to when I was in high school, it means a lot to me. You know, you're talking about a guy who's fought in all the major organizations. He's fought everybody, so it does. It means a lot to me. And, you know, he wouldn't be a statesman, and you know, the people who have met Chael and know Chael know what kind of guy he is. And, you know, he doesn't kind of mince his words. If he says something, he means it. And so it means a lot to me. At the same time, you know, it's one of those situations, and the UFC does this sort of thing where, you know, we don't get a lot of leeway as fighters. This is the first fight where I just got a phone call and was told who I was fighting. You know, normally there's a process. You know, my manager throws out a couple names, and then Joe Silva throws out a couple names, and we were in that process. And then all of a sudden, after UFC 132, when Chris Lieben knocked out Vanderlei Silva, it was 48 hours later. Boom! I got a phone call. This is who you're fighting. You know, here is the, you know, here's the bout agreement. So, no, I do take it as a compliment, and you know, but it's one of those things. I don't take it as something where I think Chael's going to go light on me next Saturday. You know, I still fully anticipate the best Chael Sonnen in the octagon, and the guy who's going to double leg take down and put me down and try and push my head, you know, right through the canvas.
And just to follow up, earlier too, you said with you had a little more time to devote to training. Was there anything specifically that you know, that you had to kind of work on more so for this fight than maybe in the past?
Oh, obviously wrestling. You know, and really, since I've been training in wrestling for a long time now, but since that Phil Davis fight, you know, it's really become something that I would say I spend most of my time. Of all the training I do, from weightlifting to running to hitting pads to everything, I've spent most of my time wrestling over the last, you know, 4 fights and last, you know, 2 years. So that's definitely a thing that I've always been working the most.
Thanks, and good luck. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Scott.
And we'll now go to Brendan Churchin with MMA Nonstop.
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking the time today. Just wanted to get some feedback from Chael on this current season of The Ultimate Fighter. Given all the controversy over the past year, you lost the opportunity to coach opposite of Michael Bisping. They gave that spot to Mayhem Miller, and I'm just curious to, you know, hear your thoughts on how that fight's going to play out and if you've been following the season thus far.
Yeah, I try to always watch the show. One, just for questions like this, but I like the show too. You know, I think it's okay. I think that the show's about the athletes. For me, I know from a promotional standpoint, we like to build the coaches too. But I know some of those guys that are competing, and so hard to get opportunities in the UFC, and the Ultimate Fighter counts. You know, if you can get on there, you get in the octagon. You get a fight in front of Dana. You get a fight in front of the world. You know, so I like it. I'm just so happy for those guys, win or lose. They were finally given their opportunity. I've heard great things about the show. I've even seen some upcoming commercials for it. No inside stuff, nothing that anyone else didn't see, just from from watching the programming. But it looks good. It looks like the coaches often act childish on that show. They don't act like coaches in terms of coaches like, say, Brian and I have on a daily basis. So I think that makes for good TV. It almost makes me scratch my head sometime and go, now, wait a second, are you coaching here, or are you just going out of your way to look like a fool and wearing a shirt that says coach? Sometimes I wish that would change a little bit, because I think those young fellows are actually there with big eyes and ready to get some knowledge, ready for somebody to throw an arm around them and really take them in like a coach would. But, I like the show, and I think, there's just some really, truly great talent that always comes out of there. Don't forget Rashad Evans came out of there. Forrest Griffin, Josh Koscheck, Chris Lieben, Kenny Florian is getting ready to fight for a world title next week. They all came through that show, and frankly, scouting is very important too. These guys aren't Brian and I's weight class, but when they are, it's important to know who's coming up, who's next.
Sure. And just given that, what are your thoughts on the fight between Bisping and Miller, and who do you think takes that one home?
That's a good fight, and I think Bisping's the favorite and should be. He's just been doing a great job in the ring too. He keeps winning fight after fight. Works hard, pushes the pace really well. Miller's been out a while. Miller definitely has the skills to beat him. He's noticeably bigger and stronger now. I think he took that time off and really committed to growing into an 85-pounder. Miller could do well too. I think I'll cheer for Miller, but I think the safer. If Miller beats him, I think it's an upset.
All right. Well, thanks a bunch, guys, and good luck next weekend. I appreciate the time today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we're just about out of time. We will take our final question from Steven Morocco with MMAJunkie.com.
Hey, question for Chael. Obviously, you're sounding pretty run down today. I'm wondering if you might be able to put your finger on why this camp has been so challenging. Do you think maybe it's just getting back into action after a layoff, or maybe you did too much helping Yushin prepare for his fight? What do you think it is?
I haven't put my finger on it. I think it's a good sign. I think you should always be a little run down at some point. For me, it's almost always now. And, on top of just the training preparation, it's just a tough week. And that's not just for me. It's for everybody on the card. It's a tough week. It's weight cutting week. It's media week. It's travel week. It's anxiety week. You've got the match coming up. So I think it's just part of the process. I'm not overly, worked up or disappointed to be run down. I think it's normal. This spot that is pretty familiar, and as to why it happened, a combination of everything you said. We work hard. When you work hard, you get worn down, and you're not sleeping as much when you've got media obligations. I had a couple of media obligations that were East Coast, and East Coast time is 4 a.m. my time. Which means I'm up and awake at 3 and trying to get the sleep out of my voice, and in a car at 3:30 and in the studio by 4 so it can air live on the East Coast at 7 a.m. And when you start working hard and you cut down on your sleep, it's just the number one way to attack your immune system. But, again, my dad worked hard every day. My father was a plumber. And he worked hard every day, and he never once complained about being tired or not feeling good, and I would never disrespect him or any of the other men and women out there that work a lot harder and a lot longer days than I do by complaining about, being a little bit run down.
Okay, thanks. Appreciate it.
You got it.
Thank you, and that's all the time we have for questions today. I would like to turn the floor back over to Dave Scholler for any additional or closing remarks.
Thanks, Catherine. I want to say thank you to Chael Sonnen and Brian Stann for joining today's call. It's going to be a hell of a middleweight fight at UFC 136 next week in Houston. There are a very limited number of tickets still available, and I emphasize the word very. Before we go, I do want to make one quick announcement for the UFC Fan Expo. As you know, every year at the Fan Expo, we have grappling super fights in association with Grappler's Quest. This year, the UFC Fan Expo Grappling Super Fight will pit UFC welterweight and Texas native TJ Waldberger against the Ultimate Fighter Season 12 contestant Mark Stevens. Also, Nova Now black belt Wesley Gann of Dallas will take on North American Grappling Champion Justin Rader. Those will take place at the Fan Expo next Friday and Saturday. We look forward to seeing everybody in Houston. Good matches, right, Chael? And let's not forget tomorrow night on Versus, Dominick Cruz defends the bantamweight title against Demetrius Johnson. A great heavyweight co-main event. Pat Barry against Stefan Struve. Thanks to everybody who joined the call, and we will see you either in D.C. or in Houston. Thanks, guys.